Hey guys, it's your boy SC_Slayerich here with yet another one of my daily uploads. Not actually. So there's a badass new mission in Destiny 2 called 0 Hour. This activity is brutally difficult. Not only are enemies harder hitting and heavily shielded, but there's a long platforming section that can severely cut into your time bank for the final boss. If you intend to test your mettle by soloing this activity, you will definitely need to practice in addition to watching this video. The first step to soloing 0 Hour is to unlock it. You have to solo that part too. If you don't, I'll know. Then it's time to figure out your loadout. By far the most important part of your loadout is going to be your energy weapons. There are lots of enemies with all three types of shields, so you'll need energy weapons that can be swapped without ammo loss, and the only way to do that is to run 3 primary energy weapons. Long-range weapons like bows and scout rifles are preferable, but anything will work. You should have at least 1 energy weapon of each element. Specials and exotics aren't optimal here pretty much no matter how you cut it. Of the 3 weapons I pick out for myself, the strongest is actually the Arsenic Bite Bow. Loadout choices here are super versatile, just make sure you cover your bases element-wise. Next, for your power weapon, I would recommend an Arc Machine Gun and Whisper of the Worm, but for my pathing, you really just need a usable Arc Heavy weapon for the first few encounters, and then you'll swap to Whisper pretty early. Darcy is my next choice behind Whisper because it does an adequate job for DPS and saves you from needing to swap it out, but in total honesty, Whisper of the Worm is night and day compared with any alternative here. In any case, Arc is the preferred element, and this can be done with any power weapon, so just pick your most reliable one. Finally, for your kinetic slot, I'd recommend a sniper rifle, ideally something with triple tap, but any sniper works. Because I'm recommending mostly long-range primaries for your energy slot, you'll probably also want a long-range kinetic to synergize with that extra effort. Arbalest is also an amazing choice here, but I haven't had the opportunity to use it myself, so if you have it, definitely consider building a loadout around it. There are enough shielded enemies to justify a versatile shield breaker. Armor-wise, there's nothing too crazy to talk about. Unsurprisingly, in an activity that's bursting at the seams with Fallen, the Fallen-based mods from Scourge of the Past are incredibly helpful. Fallen Absorption is specifically godly because it allows you to liberally use grenades to break shields without necessarily having to swap weapons. These mods are not must-haves, but if you do have them, they are definitely must-uses. On a similar note, if you plan on running sniper rifles as I suggest, look for helmets and class items that have the Sniper Rifle Reserve perk to capitalize best on your ammo drops. Lastly, for your exotic armor, I recommend Skull of Dire Ahamkar for Warlock, Orpheus Rig for Hunter, and Armamentarium for Titan. If you have them, Transversive Steps, Stompies, and Lion Rampant are also useful to have available on your character. Once you've got your loadout locked down, visit a rally flag and start the mission up. Shortly after Mithrak shows how badass he is by murdering a helpless drag, you'll find yourself in a room with a bunch of listless Fallen looking for a tussle. Start by throwing a grenade at the Void Shanks next to either of the captains, then snipe the 2 Sniper Shanks. Next, kill the remaining Shanks or the captain, whichever is more exposed, and don't be afraid to use heavy ammo here, especially if you plan on swapping to Whisper. There are enough enemies that can threaten you that it's worth bursting them down quickly with power ammo to avoid being slowed down. Also, there are 2 invisible Vandals who will approach to melee you, but you can easily kite them by backing up if you aggro them. You should be able to kill most of the enemies from pretty far back. In the second room, your priority is once again the Sniper Shanks. Those little rust buckets can pump out serious burst damage if you aren't careful, so my approach is to peek from under this collapsed stairwell to kill most of them. You could kill all 5 from here, 3 on the scaffolding and 2 on the far left big shank, but you want to save sniper ammo for the 3 big shanks as well. Once you've cleared enough snipers to safely proceed a little bit, switch your attention to the arc shielded shanks and kill all 9 of them with either your machine gun or your energy weapon. After the snipers and arc shield shanks are dead, stand next to the concrete fin and swap to Whisper of the Worm if you're going to, and a solar weapon if you haven't yet. Then take out the 3 big shanks and the 2 Vandals. Try to keep an eye on ammo drops as you're clearing out this room so you can quickly pick them up once the room is clear. The third combat room is a major obstacle of time loss, so learning to be efficient in here is huge. I always open up this room by sniping all 8 of the Vandals and both of the Sniper Shanks from the first stairwell. You can do that with any weapon obviously, but a sniper or a bow with Rampage is easily going to be fastest. This clears a ton of space, and you're far enough away that the Vandals won't even fire back at you, so it's a very safe start. After clearing the snipers, kill everything else. Just kidding. On your left, there's anywhere from 0 to 3 persnickety solar shanks that pretty much make it impossible to move around. You have to kill those guys to accomplish much else of value here, so go ahead and kill them with your solar energy weapon or other elemental attacks. Once those shanks are gone, you can safely super the rest of the ads to kill them through the Servitor immunity fields. You probably won't get all of them with your super, so go back to the stairwell and pick off whatever remains. The top Servitor is your highest priority here, because if he lives long enough, he sometimes wanders to the bottom area next to another Servitor. That's a problem because the Servitors will often alternate their immunity, effectively making them invincible except to supers. So, if you've used your super and let them escape to the lower level, that can turn into a major time loss. After the upper level enemies are all dead, you can kill the Shanks at the ground level and fight the first mini-boss, Golgoroth. Be extremely careful for his laser cannon attack, it will one-shot you. Once Golgoroth is dead, continue to the next area and kill the captain and surrounding enemies with your super if you have it back. You won't need a super again for a long time, so go nuts with your abilities to get through this section as fast as possible. The path forwards is peppered with fairly weak enemies until the next section, which is all about dying to gravity instead. So you've made it to this point in my video. I hope you've learned something, or maybe you skipped ahead because you think you're so good at combat you have nothing to learn. Do you have 12 minutes left on your clock? You don't? Okay, then we'll go back to the beginning, you trash goblin. You need 12 minutes here, you automatically fail. Not actually, but 12 minutes is a good standard to keep for your pacing. You can complete the mission with way less, but shoot for 12. I'm going to go over the pathing and jumps for normal mode first, and then heroic mode, because heroic mode is actually different. If you're hoping to solo carry, this is the section where you can be the biggest asset to your team, because certain jump sequences have levers to pull at the end that makes the jumping path easier for your teammates. So, your platformally challenged buddies can keep up. The jump section starts in a zone called Passage. Immediately you'll jump down to the lowest level and go directly below the cockpit of the plane. From there you take the vent passage on the right, drop down on your left, jump through another vent, and you're in a room with 2 air vents you can use. You'll want to go through the one behind the cabinet and then immediately take the next 2 right turns. From there you fall directly onto a platform that falls away. Hold forwards into the wall and go into the cubby and proceed into the horrifying heights outside. Jump to the yellow hanging platform, and from there, you can save a substantial chunk of time by jumping directly back the way you came and holding your character against the wall as you fall. This is significantly easier than the main path, but obviously if you bork it, you still turn into a Guardian Pancake. For Warlocks, I found the most success by using a quick burst of double jump to slow my fall as I reached the bottom, and then use the remainder to make it to the platform. As a Titan, I did essentially the same thing, but Lion Rampant or Strafe Lift seemed almost necessary. On the lower path, there's a lever you can pull to help teammates behind you make the jump. There's also a lever you can pull to trick your teammates into falling to their deaths. There's also only one lever. It's okay, you tried. The important thing is trying. Because you're gonna get it this time, because I put out a thing to help you.
Oh no! Cody, stop!
God, Cody. You're an evil person.
Once you make it to the platforms, jump to the higher level of them and directly into the vent shaft above your head. From here, you'll enter a tall room. Jump up and right until you get to the highest vent shaft on the right side of the room. Once you break the 3 grates, you'll be inside an air shaft of spinning fan blades, kind of like the underbelly of the Leviathan, except instead of killing you by blowing you into walls, they get to the point and just chop you to pieces. To drop through the fan room safely, you'll always want to jump to the side with the brightest red light and hold movement against the wall as you land on the pipes below you. If you slide off or move, use your double jump to reorient yourself in the middle of the room above the fan blades, and then simply repeat that process on the way down. Rushing this room is an easy way to die and waste time, so don't rush it. After a short path through another vent, you'll arrive at a huge empty gap. Fortunately for you, you know the power of gentle falling. To get across this chasm of a room, you'll simply want to land on the right and left ledges with as little downward momentum as possible. Control your jump and don't rush once again. The ledges are deceptively forgiving and won't throw you off unless you land on them really hard. There's another lever to activate here if you have a team, and once you're at that point, you've basically done all of the normal mode platforming. Now for the heroic mode. Heroic immediately veers off the main path in the passage load zone. Instead of dropping to the low level and going under the ship, you'll go to the opposite end at the high level and crawl into yet another vent. Inside this room, there's an optimal path for Warlocks and Titans and an optimal path for Hunters with Stompies. For the Warlock and Titan, break the vent that's directly below the platform at the end of the room in plain sight. Turn left once inside and drop all the way to the lower bridge from the center hole. Inside this room will be 4 possible lower paths. You'll need to go to the one opposite of the one without pipes to activate a lever, and then you can go directly to the one without pipes. From here, you'll get to a giant drain which you have to ascend, and if you pull the correct lever, you'll find that manhole labeled 3 is opened. Jump on top of it and ascend to the world above. Except it's not the world above, it's more vents. Yikes. For the Hunter with Stompies, you don't go into the same air vent into the room with pipes. You go under the platform and behind you, where you find the blue key card if you grab the configuration key, and drop down into a chute. At the end of the chute, you're going to be above a giant gap, so jump to the right side of the chasm with your Stompies, and then on top of the handrail's highest point next to manhole 3. From here, if you time your jumps properly, you can jump directly up without having to activate the switch. High mobility definitely helps a lot here. The next obstacle will be a long, narrow room with a deep gap in the middle. For this room, it's very important that you don't use your double jump too early into your first movement. If you hit your head on the roof, you'll struggle to get the distance you need. However, if you wait long enough, you shouldn't have any problem getting to the first cubby. From there are lots of simple ways to jump back and forth across to the end, but my personal preference for Warlocks was to double jump diagonally into the wall of the opposite side, release the glide as I hit the wall, and then activate it again to smoothly land in the cubby of the same side as my original wall. Hunters and Titans shouldn't have too much trouble here, but as always, practice helps. Once you get across, there is a lever to help your teammates who are behind you once again. The next jumping section is without a doubt the most demanding. It is a long sequence of small ledges that will all result in death at the slight misstep. If you aren't comfortable with your jumping skills, this would be the time to turn things on like controlled glide. The jumps themselves are all fairly simple in one singular movement, so remember that, and don't let the long sequence of deadly falls get to your head. There's really no reason to look down, and it doesn't help to psych yourself out thinking about how a single missed jump at the very end starts you over at the very beginning. I mean, it would really suck to get all the way to the end of the section and then accidentally overshoot something, you know? And that kind of thing happens all the time if you overthink it. I mean, really, imagine landing the first 10 jumps only to accidentally slip up on the 11th one. Anyway, it's best not to focus on that, you got this. To begin the section with the pipe drain jumps, you'll want to form a slight smooth arc away from the wall at each jump so you can go back towards it. These jumps don't quite max out your jump distance, so it can be helpful to sprint as you start each jump, but to cancel your sprint midair as you get close to the end of the jump. Once you're through those, the jumps upwards and onto the pipes are fairly simple, but watch out for the simple blue pipe and the rectangular platform. Both of those fall away if you stand on them. You have to keep moving once you've jumped on. Once you're on the orange pipe, it's time to wrap around the wall with your jump. The simplest way to do that is to get close to the edge before jumping at all, and then focus on using your ground jump to get around the corner and using your double jump to get the distance to the platform. On a Warlock, this is where controlled glide can help a lot. On a Hunter, you should be around the corner before even double jumping, let alone triple jumping. Next are the rising platforms. The pattern to their movement is very simple, but they are also liars, do not fall for their tricks. The second and fourth platforms never rise up, but the rest of them simply rise and fall in order. As soon as you see the platform closest to you start rising, that's when you need to jump to the third platform, since the second doesn't rise, and then from there, commit to jumping to either the fifth or the sixth platform. Quickly jump off the final one and around the corner to the wall. Once you're here, it's a simple matter of jumping out from the wall and going back up onto it. One tip to get to this part is to go along the wall as you do the movement out and in again. Staying in one place horizontally as you try to move up vertically is definitely less intuitive. Once you get in the opened window, take a right turn. The next obstacle is a slide. It's fairly simple, but will also kill you if you're not paying attention. As you slide down, avoid the pipe on the right by staying left, then switch to the other side, and as you get to the bottom, you need to do a single jump followed by a controlled double jump to cross the gap. Finally, you'll climb out of the room on the top right through a vent, cross some pipes, and return to the pathway you've grown familiar with in normal mode. Hooray, you made it through the platforming. Now it's time for the final sections: Death Roomba, Trevor, the Vault, and the Fallen Boss Rush. Once you drop down the remaining air shafts, you get to the Death Roomba's Labyrinth. You can either take a left or a right. Orienting yourself isn't super clear, but once you get your bearings, you'll want to make a habit of going left first, because that's where the Death Roomba begins his prowl, and we want to follow him as closely as possible. Now, if you look at this handy diagram that I rendered and produced entirely by myself that definitely was not given to us in a perfectly clear in-game map, you'll see what the room layout looks like. It's really not a labyrinth as much as you might imagine it's one once you're inside. You'll want to do the switches in an order of L1, L2, R2, R1. Whether or not you need to avoid our good friend Trevor depends entirely on your speed from entering the load zone. To avoid Trevor, always try to be attentive to where you hear his robotic sounds, watch for corners turning red near them, and always try to stay near a cubby to hide in if needed. Once you've crossed this room, you can get up any of the 4 elevators to proceed into the next area. If you immediately drop behind Trevor as you start and hit the switches in the order that I do, you shouldn't have to deal with Trevor at all. Once you've crossed this room, you can get up any of the 4 elevators to proceed to the next area. In my runs, I use the wall's support beams to climb directly up, although you can go back and forth more easily and the elevators are easier still, but those methods are a little slower. Once you're at the top, break the vent grate and go down the middle of the slide, single jumping as you pass the second set of pipes at the left and take a left turn into the next room. On your right, there will be a final vent that, once navigated, brings you to the vault. As you drop down to the vault, try not to get too disoriented as it's dark and hard to see, but you pretty much take a right turn based on the last direction you were walking to get to the secret wall next to some pipes and a cryptarch symbol. All you have to do is approach the wall. I'm going to go ahead and note that the white tiled room is different on heroic mode. If you step on a wrong tile, the room will incinerate you, so you'll need to follow the exact path that I do, at least on Void Week. As of the time I'm making this video, the path for Solar Week is unknown, so if it's Solar Week, the best strategy is to guess and hopefully you're a good guesser. After the tile room, go all the way to the back of the room, the far end from where you enter, and then take a right turn down a freshly laser drilled escape hatch. Follow the pathway until you arrive at the final chute to the boss room, and before dropping down, note that this is your last easy chance to change gear before the fight. As I expressed before in this video, I expect you to be running a Void subclass here. To be clear, in this fight we're talking about the top tree Voidwalker, the top tree Night Stalker, or the middle tree Sentinel. We also want to use a long-range arc energy weapon, and ideally Whisper of the Worm or Darcy. A kinetic sniper is also going to be a good choice for boss DPS in the event you don't have sniper ammo in your heavy. Once you have all your combat exotics on, drop in and start the fight. The first thing you do after dropping down is gun down the snipers next to the turrets at the corners of the room. There are 2 on either side. There are a lot of other enemies around, but the snipers are the only major threats for now. After they're dead, pick off the rest of the dregs and then hit the boss with a sniper shot or 2. Do not try to put in too much damage. Pacing is key to not getting overwhelmed with enemies. Apparently, the boss also sometimes doesn't spawn in. If that happens to you, jump off the map immediately to make him spawn in and waste as little time as possible. Once you've done enough damage to the boss, a Servitor and 8 Void Shielded Shanks will spawn in. No matter what class you are, this is where you use your Void Super to handle the Servitor and all the Shanks. If you don't have your Super at this point, what the hell did you do? We've been platforming for like 5 minutes. How did you even mess that up? Anyway, after you Super the Shanks, put a little more damage on the boss and he will teleport behind you on your left and there will be 4 Arc Shanks in the corner. Kill them with your energy weapon and put another couple shots into the boss. Another Servitor will spawn opposite of the first one, this time with 8 Solar Shanks. If you have Orpheus Rig or Skull of Dire Ahamkara, you should be able to Super this Servitor as it spawns in immediately as well. In the event that any of the Shanks or Servitor survive, start putting shots into the Servitor and watch out for the 4 Arc Shanks that you previously killed to respawn. The safest place is the underpass in the middle of the bottom of the map, but you can also use the big containers to line of sight the Solar Shanks while killing the Arc ones. After you've killed 2 rounds of Arc Shanks, switch to a Solar Energy weapon and kill off the remaining enemies and the Servitor. If the Solar Shanks are dead immediately following your Super, just keep your Arc weapon out. After you damage the boss a little bit more next to the Solar Shanks, he'll go opposite of his second teleport and spawn in 4 more Arc Shanks. At this point, you'll want to go up on the farthest platform where the Solar Shanks were flying, in other words, to the deepest corner of the map you can. If you're on the high platform in that corner, you can take some more health off the boss and get ready to kill the 2 spider tanks that spawn in right where the snipers were in the beginning. From this farthest uppermost corner, you should be able to see one of the spider tanks and only one of the spider tanks. It should be easy to avoid most of the single one shots. Using Whisper, Darcy, or your kinetic sniper, take out the spider tanks to the best of your ability. Once one is dead, move to the other side in the equivalent position and kill the second tank as well. At that point, switch to your arc energy weapon if you don't have it on and kill the rest of the Shanks. 2 points to note during the tank fight. Firstly, if you don't have any decent snipers, you can use the middle tree Void Titans grenades to destroy the tanks. I strongly recommend the Armamentarium if you're doing this strategy because it helps to create a buffer in case you completely miss a grenade. The strategy itself is very strong though. Secondly, while you are fighting the Shanks, one invisible marauder with a molten cannon will try to pepper you from a distance that's close enough to be a tiny threat, but more importantly, it can throw off your aim. He'll only fire at you for a little while before running away again if you're in the correct spot, so you can kill him to save yourself the trouble of flinch, or let him wander off and strafe his shots. In any case, don't let him make you miss a critical Whisper shot and fail a run. He will interrupt you at least a little bit at some point. After both tanks are dead and you've killed the majority of the remaining adds, it's a simple matter of killing the boss. You'll want to stay as far away from the boss platform as possible and continue to hit him as hard as possible because more enemies will spawn under certain conditions that seem most avoidable if you maintain sniper range as seen in the video. No sense in letting more adds spawn if you don't have to. Once he's dead, double check for any invisible enemies on the platform with you. Until you see Mithrax spawn in at the ledge, there are still enemies alive. But if Mithrax does show up, he's trying to tell you that you're a badass and he wishes he had half the raw talent and good looks you have. Awesome job. You did it, you fiend. Alright, that's all. If you have specific questions, feel free to hit me with a message on Twitch or Twitter. Thanks for watching. Really hope this helped you to challenge yourself and to help others. Good luck out there.